So, welcome to the Sharon Fitzmaurice podcast, celebrating the resilience of the human spirit. Today is episode 75, and I haven't been here for a few weeks. And we know with life that, when we have family and commitments, that other things take over, and that's okay. We shouldn't feel guilty about it or that we need to do more. We do what we can and we do our best. So, my wonderful guest today is Elen Sentier, a quirky wilderness woman who is deeply connected to nature and a best-selling author of British native shamanism. She comes from a long family lineage of cunning folk and was brought up as an Awin's spirit keeper in the old magical traditions of Britain. A qualified transpersonal psychotherapist, Ellen helps clients become their true selves, rewild their hearts, and find what makes their hearts sing. Ellen lives in the Welsh Marches with her husband, and I know that she loves cats and eats paleo. And her saying is, if the cat and boyfriend disagree, get rid of the boyfriend. Ellen, you are very welcome.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. And it's absolutely lovely to be here and to actually meet you in person at last.
I know. Thank you so much, Ellen. So there is so much in your introduction. And what I love is that you're a quirky wilderness woman. I think a lot of us women are quirky and we're wild, and that for a long time we weren't allowed to be that wild, beautiful self. We had to toe the line or be a certain way if we wanted to be a lady or seem feminine. And I feel that our feminine energy is quirky and it is wild and it is so strong that I think more and more women like you, Ellen, are coming out and saying, we're going to embrace the wild side of who we are. We want to be out in nature. We want to share who we are, and we're not afraid to say it out loud. Would you agree, Ellen?
I do very much. And you coming from Ireland, which is another of the old Celtic lands and full of wild women,
Yes.
as I know several. And we're needed out there.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it an awful lot, particularly in women businessmen. That was a bloody awful thing to say, excuse me, wasn't it?
I love that.
In business women, let's
Yes.
get there. That really sort of, that actually showed me something that you said, when we weren't allowed to. There's still a lot of that about.
Mm.
And my stumble there of saying women businessmen,
Yeah.
oops, it's sort of like, it is still there. And it
Mm.
seems that it's almost still in me,
Yes.
which is interesting, but we're needed.
Absolutely.
Oh.
And when you say, that some places in business it's still not allowed, do you think it's actually the women themselves that don't allow themselves to step out of that masculine role, that they have to do as much hours as the
Yeah.
men, even if they have a family, they have to dress a certain way to look like a business professional,
Yeah.
or they have to act and speak a certain way to look the part, instead of bringing their own quirkiness, their own personality into the business world and saying, I can be the best business person in the world. I can be very professional, but I can also have humor and my own ideas. And I can be a mother and a wife and, a partner. And I can do all of these other things outside and still bring my skills, my talents, my qualities into this business, whatever that business is.
I think that's really important. I mean, I'm in the process of rebranding this year. I used to speak to a much smaller audience and work particularly with individual clients, and I still do.
Mm.
But I want to be able to get out like podcasting, like speaking, that kind of thing, because I feel that women are very good initiators of change.
Mm.
And we are in a place of change at the moment.
Mm.
And I'm I'm being spoken to and asked to work with a lot of women, business women, usually solopreneurs. So, they're people on their own who are,
Yes.
we're going to forge it forward anyway, kind of
Mm.
thing. And they've actually got a whole load of new ways of thinking. And so my tagline, if you want it, for at the moment, and I think for the future, is like, let's put the soul back in your business.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Let's
we
put
need
the
it.
soul back in your business.
Yeah, we do need it. And it's, I think women will take to that and go to that more easily than
Yes.
men.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you that we are sometimes our own worst enemy.
Mm,
And we've got into stuck ways, we've got into old scripts from parents and friends and teachers and business and jobs and,
mm,
the peer group stuff.
yes.
And we stay with that. And people say things like, oh, you can't say that. And being me, because excuse me, one of my other qualities, which a friend of mine gave me, she said, "You're a heartful, badass woman."
Yeah, I love it.
And
Be a
I thought,
badass
yeah,
with a
that's
good
that's
ass.
you got it. That's it. That's about it. And so, somebody says to me, "Well, you can't say that." And I said, "So, well, I just did."
Mm, yeah.
And actually, the sun's still shining.
Mm-hmm.
The house hasn't fallen down.
Yeah.
Possibly, we could actually think about that,
Yes.
but we get stuck in it. I mean, there's even little things like, I don't have children, but I know many people who do, and I know their children. And, oh, mum, you can't be like that. Johnny and Freddie are laughing at me. And so mum sort of goes, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't. And instead of saying, excuse me, you know, you go around looking like a complete disaster area.
Mm,
Why can't I be me?
yeah. Absolutely. I
And
think my children would agree with you, Ellen. I have two grown adult children, and they often say to me, oh my God, mom, and all the things that I do. And I work a lot online and I put a lot of stuff up in social media to show this is me. This
yes.
is who I am, and I'm not afraid to be funny or wild or quirky. And my friend told me yesterday that I had a master's in craziness. I thought that was a
Oh, wow.
compliment.
I love it. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You should.
Some people might take that as an insult. I took it as a beautiful
Uh,
compliment.
I think it's brilliant. And I mean, stick it on your tagline on LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were speaking about us, and women in particular, and also for males, that, something you spoke about on your podcast was archetypes,
Yes.
and we're labeled or we believe we are a certain type, this
Yeah.
archetype of personality.
Yeah.
What do you say to people about, I listened to the podcast and I thought it was so interesting. And it was, we allow others to label us,
Yes.
don't we? We allow other people to say, oh, you're this kind of a person,
Mm.
Sharon,
Yeah.
or Ellen, this is the type of person you are. And
Mm.
sometimes we start believing it. And it maybe in roles in business that women start believing this is the type of personality you are, and you should be working more in this sector and not in another sector. And part of you is going, yeah, it's okay, but I'd rather be over there in the creative side. But
Yes.
you don't speak up because you start believing what other people are telling you.
I think you've got it. I think you hit the nail on the head there. We do allow other people to label us. And I was only reading something this morning, probably on LinkedIn or somebody's post or something. And they were saying, well, in order to communicate properly, you really need to know what sort of a person you are and what sort of communication you do.
Mm.
And I was going, you've never even met me.
Yeah.
How do you know? And why, so I get a label that I'm an extrovert or an introvert, or I'm an extroverted introvert or an introverted
Mm.
extrovert or blah.
Yes.
And I sort of go, oh, well, what does that look like? And I've
Mm.
seen people do this. They'll go on Google and they'll look up what an extroverted introvert is, according to Google, and then they'll try and be it.
Yes.
And that happens to men as well.
Yes. Why do we need to label ourselves? I'm speaking about this quite a lot all through the years.
Mm.
And I know, for putting ourselves out there like we're doing, we have to label our podcast, we have to label what we do so people can identify us and say, oh, Ellen can help me with such and such a thing, and Sharon can help me with another thing. So those labels are there to identify us to our audience or to the outside world. But I always say we're more than those
Far more
labels.
than that. I mean, okay, take a very little thing. Um, you've got a border in your garden and it's got red roses in it and green grasses in it.
Mm.
Now, I said red roses. There are acres of different sorts of red. There are also acres of different sorts of rose.
Yes.
And so I've given you a rough idea that this is a rose garden and it's got grasses in it.
Yeah.
So you can sort of think, I hate roses and I loathe grass. I really want petunias.
Yeah.
You think, I don't want that podcast. So it's a real like big overarching
Yes.
idea.
Mm.
And it's okay, you know, from my upbringing, I don't really call myself a woman in the sense I call myself a person who's wearing a female body this time around.
Very
Because
good. I like it.
I know reincarnations and I can
Yes.
have memories, but anyway, leave that. But so I'm not a woman. I'm a person who's wearing a female body.
Yes.
Um, that's fine. That's an overarching thing. I can say I'm a woman because then that gives people an idea that I'm female.
Mm-hmm.
And I do, you know, there's lots of things that are particularly female and not male. But woman is only a very overarching thing, and so is like back to the extroverts that I was just talking about. Being an extrovert is an enormous thing.
Mm.
And you can be extroverted in this way or that way, and you can be extroverted in some situations, and in other situations you're like, oh no, I'm going in the corner.
Yes.
So they're useful. Okay, take it into groceries even. You want some baked beans because you're going to have baked beans on toast for lunch. So baked beans is useful. You know what you're looking for, and you're not going to go and look for it in the milk section.
Mm.
So I think the archetype labels are just like that, really.
Mm.
And we mustn't get too hooked up that a label is going to describe us. I mean, there are however many billion people there are in the world, which means there are however many billion individuals.
Mm. Yes, and I think as individuals to embrace, our beautiful qualities that we have. I always say that I'm like nobody else. I might look like my family members, but my personality, my characteristics are quite different to them. And we have that connection of growing up, under the same parents. But apart from that, we may be very different in very many ways.
Yeah.
And to embrace that uniqueness in ourselves, but also I also like to learn. That's why I do this podcast. I love learning about other people and their stories and what has inspired them and what they have done in their lives. Because for me, then it opens up my mind to going, oh, Ellen told me about this, and I love that. I'm going to learn a little bit or read a little bit more about that so that I'm expanding also the qualities within myself. I'm always growing. So, how can I put myself under the one label when I'm growing day by day?
Well, you just can't, can you? And I
No.
completely agree. And it's one of the things that I find I have to help clients with, because when people need a friend, they need a counselor, a coach, a friend. What was it? Somebody said, I need a grown-up friendly face to talk to.
Yes.
And that's what they said. I want you for that. That's fine. I can do that, Joe. And they need to sort of unpick the various archetypes or various labels that they've got on themselves, which they may have put on themselves, but more likely they've picked up from somewhere else, and start saying, well, actually, that one doesn't fit anymore. And I don't like that one, but actually, I quite like this one. So I'll bring it closer.
Yes.
And this is what, for me, the whole of the coaching process is about. And I work with business women, as you know, and I am helping them with their business. But in order to help their business, they've got to move on and learn, just as you were saying just then. They've got to move on and grow and learn themselves. Otherwise, they get stuck.
Yeah. And I think everybody gets stuck at certain at
Mm,
times in their life. And, that's normal and natural. There are times, throughout both our lives where we have got stuck and we needed to reroute our mind or our thinking or our heart and go back to, I always say, go back to the basics. What is it you love doing? What do
yes.
you feel happiest doing? Not
Yeah.
what you think you're good at, but what you feel
Feel.
happiest
Yeah,
doing.
absolutely. Feel, feel, feel. I mean,
Yeah.
I was fortunate. My dad, I mean, dad had lots of bad points as well. He was a
Mm,
human being. But he had lots of good points. And one of the things he used to say to me, as grumbly sort of 9 or 10-year-olds, and I said, well, what's going to make your heart sing then?
yes.
And I've never forgotten that.
Mm,
And I use that with people now. So, well, what makes your heart sing? If
yeah.
all of your money worries were gone and
Yeah.
you didn't have whatever relationship problems you have or whatever else it is,
Mm,
what is it you want? What does it make your heart sing? Now, how do
yeah.
we go there?
How do we go there? Tell us, Ellen, how you go there.
Oh God. Well, like we just said, it's individual for each person.
Yeah.
But the first thing for me is, I'm sure you've seen the Harry Potter films.
Yes, love them.
Well, the very first one, and the poor little soul is shut in a cupboard under the stairs.
Mm,
Isn't that what we do to ourselves?
yes.
So, number one is start opening the cupboard door and letting your inner Harry Potter, your inner wild woman, whatever,
Mm,
let them out. And they'll probably need a cup of tea and possibly a cuddle and maybe a
yeah.
cry because
Mm,
they've been shut in the dark for hours and days
yeah.
and years.
Mm,
And so, bring them out and let's listen to them. This is something that I found was so strong between the old magic ways of my parents and Jung. Jung has a thing he calls active imagination, and that is so like a led journey.
mm,
And oh, right, okay. So weave in, Jung wisdom and parents' wisdom and everything else, put them together.
mm,
So people sort of think, I can't talk to a bit of myself that I can't see. Yes, you can. And sometimes it means you need a prop. Sometimes, they might want one of my teddy bears or a cushion
mm,
or something. And right. And they really do sit there like this,
yeah.
holding them, talk to them. And they find like a child does, when they're
Mm,
talking for two people.
yes.
And they will do this. And
Mm,
they don't understand at first what's coming out for this Harry Potter self that's just been released. And then we start to listen to it and they start to learn because they're letting stuff out that they've never told anybody sometimes.
yes.
And you've got to do that. That's the beginning, is
Mm,
to start finding out who you are.
mm,
And that's like finding out all the bits that you haven't seen for years, maybe the
yeah.
bits that you don't like very much.
Mm,
Um, and what is it about them you don't like?
mm,
And how did they get there? And what have they got? This is a big one. And this does certainly come from the magic. What have they got to give you? What have these things,
mm,
people, parts of yourself that you don't like, what have they got to give you? Because they all
yeah.
have. So that's how we begin.
I love that. I love it. It kind of feels for me, Ellen, when you're speaking, and you do it so eloquently, you know, when we're speaking to that part of ourselves. And I love the fact that you said that part of ourselves has never got a voice, has never been given the opportunity to speak. And so when we start listening to it, it's saying things that we haven't shared with anybody else. And
Yeah.
there might be shame or guilt or
Oh, yes.
regret or all of those
All
things,
of those. Yeah.
and people I know don't want to show those sides of themselves. But you just said the most important thing. That side of ourselves has so much to teach us. It is
Yes.
so much of where our healing can begin,
Absolutely.
where we can begin to grow and learn. Well, that's what's been holding me back all my adult life, because my young self that was locked away in that cupboard in my mind, it was trying to tell me, you never came and got me. You
Yeah.
never reached in and opened the door for me. You left me there hidden, so I
Yeah.
never had an opportunity to become who I wanted to become.
Yeah.
So I would call that, when I'm doing my own work, is being your own best friend. And that part of you that is hidden away and is crying out to you and maybe angry and maybe
Oh,
sad and
yes.
guilty, that
Mm.
you can give it compassion. Say, well, I'm here for you now. What do you need? Just asking it,
Oh,
what
that's
does it
my
need?
question too. What do you need? What do you
Yes,
need from me?
yes,
And that it opens floodgates. And
yes,
I I call this, and I'm starting to get brave enough to say it out loud on podcast. I call that soul retrieval.
yes, it is.
It
Yeah,
is.
you're so right. And I think people are afraid of that word, soul retrieval,
Mm.
but it's not, because there's so many parts to us, so many parts to our soul,
Mm.
that it gets lost or it gets
Yeah.
sidetracked along the way.
Mm.
And it's not about, this mystical force, that we may not believe in, but it is a part of
Mm.
us. And
Yeah.
people say that there's something missing within me.
Yes, they
Do you
do.
often hear people saying that in
Yeah.
business, anywhere in the world? It doesn't matter what their beliefs are, what way they've been brought up.
Mm.
They'll come to you and they'll say, there's a part of me missing, and I just don't know what it is. And sometimes they have no idea what's missing.
Yeah. And other times, or sometimes even the same thing, they will sort of say, I remember when.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that is such a lovely thing for,
Mm,
a coach to be gifted when you've got a client with you. I remember when. Okay. So we've
mm,
got the beginnings of a path, and it may be well overgrown and all this kind of thing, but we can
yes.
go into the enchanted forest and we can go and find that bit.
That's beautiful. I love that. And even in the words, when you speak them into the enchanted forest and the path being a little bit overgrown, for me, it brings me back to my own childhood and
Yeah.
my imagination.
Yeah.
And that no matter what we were told, we could imagine it in our minds. And then as adults, we stop the imagination. We stop creating these enchanted forests.
Yeah.
And we have to see a forest and we have to see it made like an enchanted forest, instead of going in and being enchanted by the actual trees around us.
Oh, you have a point there and a half. Yes, you certainly do. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I live right out in the countryside.
Mm,
I've got lovely woods and forests and rivers and such like things all
mm,
around me. But, I'll go out on them and go out walking. And so often I'm passed by two, three, four, maybe, a whole group of people, and they're all talking to each other, stamping along at 900 miles an hour, and they haven't seen a damn thing that's around them.
mm.
We've got to do 10-mile hike today.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Um, and did you just see that? I was out with a girlfriend, which is someone I work with just close by, and we were going up a place we hadn't been for ages. And the first bit was climb over this stile, and I'm quite crippled, so
Mm.
it was all rather funny trying to get me over this stile, and she and I were, how women are together, you're sort of laughing and swearing, and I'm
Yes, at
gonna
the
bloody
same
do
time.
it. And anyway, we got over, and this bloke was coming the other way on the other side, but up in a tree above the stile, this robin started to sing.
Mm.
And Robin is my favorite song. I just love all the language and
Mm.
all the sounds that he's got. So we were standing there going, "Oh wow, that was fantastic! Thank you for he's obviously shouting that A, I looked at right twerp climbing over the stile,
Yes.
and B, thank God I did make it over the stile, etc. But he's singing beautifully. So we're standing there like this, and the bloke goes,
Oh.
"Oh, hello, ladies. What are you looking at?" I said, "The robin." So he did this. And Robin was up there. He went, "Robin, where?"
Oh.
And I mean, Kim and I were sort of like almost holding hands at that point, going, "Oh my God." And so Kim, being a bit more tactful than me, sort of says, "He's just up there on the branch." And I was going, "Look, you silly bugger." And he hadn't seen it. And it took us
Oh.
pointing, both of us pointing before he saw it.
Mm.
And to us, to Kim and I, that was so tragic.
Mm.
This was this was part of the enchanted forest that is all
Mm,
around us. So
yes.
this fantastic little bird singing his heart out, looking amazing on a branch, and he hadn't seen it at all.
No, and that says a lot about our society, I suppose, in the
Mm.
past few years, is that people are walking past, they're walking with their eyes open, but they're not seeing or feeling. And I know, again, we talked about technology at the start when we were chatting, but a lot of people are on their phones walking and looking down. They're on trains on their phones. They're not even saying hello to the person across from them, or,
Or
isn't it a
even looking
beautiful
out the
day?
window to see what's
No.
happening.
So
No.
absolutely. So for me, I suppose, without even going on this big journey in our mind, but just to take notice of our daily surroundings, what
Mm.
way the sky looks, what way the clouds
Yeah,
are,
exactly.
noticing. And now is this beautiful season where the leaves are falling and the colors are just amazing. My back garden is covered. It's like a magic carpet of
Yeah.
color with leaves everywhere.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
hear people giving out about the leaves being everywhere, and I'm going, oh, I
Oh,
love them. They're going to be gone soon.
I know. And they're sort of saying, oh, horrible leaves. Oh, I've got to get out there and say, oh, I'm going to do this. Yeah, well, you know, for something I've got, I do a lot of wild gardening. I used to teach it and I've got medals in it from Hampton Court and all that kind of
Mm,
stuff. So I've got a local wild gardening group going,
beautiful.
which is great. And they're all really keen. But they sort of like, well, what about the leaves? And I sort of go, well, humans have been around for about 5 million years. Who was sweeping all the leaves up before we came down?
It is
Yeah,
so true.
somehow Mother Earth had managed for 4.5 billion years without us sweeping blooming leaves.
Absolutely.
So possibly we need to get a different perspective on
Yeah.
things.
Why do we have to have everything so tidy? Nature is always about growing, and growing in a beautiful way. There's beautiful cycles to nature. And as you
Yes.
said, it has managed for billions of years. Why do we need to put it in a box and keep it tidy looking?
I, uh, well, the psychologist in me sort of says, well, it's the control freak syndrome.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's true.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. I have it a little bit. I expect you might have it a little bit. I'm not
Hmm.
very bad at it,
Yeah.
but I know some people who are. And I mean, you'll get up from the sofa, you've just been having tea with them, you get up from the sofa, you're going to go out, and they're promptly plumping up the cushions.
Yeah.
And you think, hang on.
Ah.
And or else they've got to mow the lawn because it's only supposed to be that
Mm.
high, and or they're cutting the hedge because it's got to be neat and tidy.
Yeah.
Somebody was saying that to me. I mean, I live a quarter of a mile down a farm track in the middle of an organic farm, thank God,
Mm.
and we've got hedges, nice big hedges
Mm.
full of bushes and trees and wildlife and things like that. And somebody sort of said, oh, don't you find these hedges are a real problem to manage cutting them? I go, I only cut them when I can't get the car past.
Yeah.
What do I want to cut them for?
I know.
There's birds living in there, there's little field mice
Yes.
living in there,
Yes.
and they're doing fine. If a
Yeah.
branch falls or things crack and they're falling on each other, then I give nature a hand.
Yes.
But I'm not out there trying to make her look sort of
Yeah. And again, I think, as you said, it comes down to, again, the person or the
yeah.
personality. And again, that aesthetically and perspective about what we believe others are judging us. If our gardens are
Yes.
not tidy, if it doesn't look
Yes.
perfect, that our neighbors will say, oh, they're not looking after theirs. I have a lovely garden where we let it go wild,
Mm.
because like that, I know my sister is huge into biodiversity and the environment, and she has taught me so much about the butterflies and the bees. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
now I enjoy it, and we, like you, we love listening to all the different types of bird songs, the butterflies that fly, and the different wildflowers that have started coming now that
Absolutely.
we've stopped preening everything.
Yep. Yep. I totally agree with you. And I mean, part of there's quite a few of us around here trying to help it going, and we live near the big town of Shrewsbury,
Mm.
and we're trying to, well, there's quite a lot of good stuff going there, But there are still people who, the sight of a dandelion and they have hysteria.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that they're there. Oh, that's a weed, you should kill it.
Yes.
And again, this is going back to how I was brought up. I mean, the word weed, and you may well know this from the Irish language as well, the word weed comes from wort, which is an old word for a herb, a
Yes.
medicinal or
Mm.
culinary herb. And actually, yes, you can eat dandelions.
Yes, put them in salads, make tea.
Yeah, and make dandelion wine, which is very
Yes.
nice too if you get excited about it. So it's this whole thing of somebody, goodness knows, probably only about 50 or 60 years ago, suddenly got excited about killing dandelions.
Mm.
So now we've all taken on the belief, the archetype, the label that we're not supposed to like them.
Mm. Yeah. And you know what it is? I think it's again about the opening your mind, opening your
Yes.
heart to learn a little bit. Because
Yeah.
even only, I'd say in the last year or two, I read that dandelions, when they're growing in certain parts of your garden, that the soil needs what they have to
Yes,
give to it.
absolutely.
So they're feeding your garden
Yeah.
also, instead of you trying to chop them all down,
Yeah.
that they're feeding your garden what it needs. And one of the things I believe is that everything that's in nature has a purpose.
Yeah. And that includes us.
Yes. Yeah.
And whilst, the sight of what goes on in the world absolutely gives my heart pain,
Mm.
we do have a purpose. We need to learn it.
Yeah.
And also when we're looking, when I'm with somebody coaching, helping them, they look at parts of themselves like people look at those poor dandelions.
Mm.
But they can go back to, we were talking about nature before, come back to nature doesn't make mistakes. People do.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, you have too many rats, say, in a farm. Go and look at how the farmer is working, and you'll probably see that the way he's using his cattle feed, for instance, it may look like Sainsbury's on Christmas to the rats. So they go, hey, whoa, let's get in there. Because we've oversupplied something, or else we undersupply something. So nature doesn't make mistakes. We make mistakes about ourselves. We look at ourselves and we think, oh, I really must change that. I mean, then this is a woman thing particularly too. I mean, when we get past a certain age, we start having a body image problem. And I've got one. It's fine. It's okay. I acknowledge it. But it's how we are when we're middle-aged. And our bodies have changed, and all our innards have changed, our hormones have changed, all the way we work has changed. But we beat ourselves up for that. And then, I don't know, we're watching our favorite soap on TV or something, and the adverts come on, and we see this sort of glorious looking female with absolutely perfect skin, who's sort of showing off that she's got a baby and she's got the perfect husband and she's got everything she wants and that sort of thing. And she's there like being a role model. I should be looking like that. Or you see these picture of, mother and daughter, and there's this beautiful 50-something-year-old and this beautiful 25-year-old, and you think, I don't look like that. And so that's a sort of shame and a guilt that comes on us.
Yeah. The comparison.
Yeah. And it's one that's like thrust on us by
Media.
TV, for instance,
Yes.
media generally.
Yeah.
And there's so many boxes we put ourselves in, aren't there, Sharon?
Absolutely. And something I spoke about my friend with only last week, and we were talking, she's a few years older than me. And she had no makeup on, and I told her she looked like her daughter, she looked like a beautiful young woman. And she said to me, oh, will you stop? I look so awful. I have no makeup on. And I said, well, maybe that's your true beauty.
Yes.
and you
Right.
feel like only when you have makeup on and only when you have your hair done and you're dressed nice, that that's the best version of you
Mm,
because society tells you that.
mm,
But I said, I'm standing in front of you now,
mm.
and I can just see this beauty, and there was a youthfulness about her in just being herself.
Yeah.
And I said, we don't acknowledge that enough in women when they are just being themselves. We acknowledge each other when we look great, or we're doing brilliant in business, or we're at the top of the ladder,
Yeah.
or we're managing houses and children and jobs, and we have a car and we're on holidays. And you're going, well, then how does the person at home feel
Yeah.
that doesn't have all of that? Do
Yeah.
they feel like, oh, because they're saying she's great, then I must be a failure?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I
Mm,
see that. I'm sure you do as
yeah.
well. And it's this, well, there's a lot of modern society certainly seems to be built on competition.
Yes.
We compete,
Mm,
I don't look as good as Sharon,
mm.
her glasses are better than my glasses. So,
Well, you want to see them
or
up close, they're all
whatever,
scratched.
whatever. I'm just grabbing things.
I know.
And so, but because we've been taught that we've got to be, I mean, there's even the coaching phrase that we've got to be the best person.
Mm,
And I think it's good to try and aim to be the best person you can manage today.
yeah.
That probably helps.
Mm,
But it often gets shortened down to being the best person. And we're told to fulfill our potential. And again, I'm very pleased to help people do that. But if you haven't filled your potential yet, are you a washout?
no.
But that's there.
Mm,
And even in our profession, you hear people, and I think they don't realize they're saying it.
yeah. And is it a thing, Ellen, as well, that again with the comparison and societal views and expectations of us as women or men, it doesn't make a difference, but that we are supposed to be a certain place at a certain time in our
Yeah,
lives, and
yeah,
if we're not, then again we haven't succeeded. Now I have many friends that are single females and single males, and they're not married and they don't have
yeah,
children, and for a while, maybe in their late 30s, early 40s, there was a huge expectation and almost a rush that they should
yeah,
hurry up to get married and have children.
yeah,
But then once they got past that, they came to this place of grace almost,
yeah.
where they started accepting themselves for who they are.
Mm.
But they were accepting themselves, but many of their peers would look at them and go, and you're not married. Were you ever married? Are you separated? Did you ever have children? And
Mm,
why not? Would you not like children?
mm.
And
Yeah,
it's again our perception of what another person is supposed to be like.
yeah.
So I am very mindful now of anybody that I meet, that we don't put out those same questions that have been going out for years, over generation, that there's an expectation that you should be a certain way by a certain time in your life. I
Yeah.
think we can reinvent and create ourselves as
All
often
the
as
time.
we want.
Well, every single day.
Absolutely.
We wake up new every morning,
Yes,
and
I
we
love that.
definitely do.
Yeah.
But I also think that, and I find this again with clients, that if somebody is not behaving as they feel they should, know they should, think they should, then it actually feels threatening to them
Yes.
that, but she's happy, Ellen hasn't got kids and hasn't got grandkids, but she's happy.
Mm.
Um, but, you know, she's not like me. So how can she be happy? Because I've got them.
Yeah.
And so they're threatened by
Yes.
difference.
Yes. That
And
is the whole thing, Ellen. You've just said it there. People are threatened by difference.
yeah,
So no matter, and we can go back again over generations. And if
absolutely.
somebody is different to us
Mm.
and what we believe is supposed to be normal
Yeah,
behavior, personality, looking like, whatever it
yeah,
is, then we get threatened by the difference.
yeah. And we haven't been taught that it's actually okay for
Mm.
people to be different.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that is really, really important. And
Yeah.
I was, and so in that sense, I haven't got very much of that to go back on. But I used to work for the Ministry of Defence,
Mm,
and it was great fun, and I had a really good career in that. That was great. But there were all sorts of normalities there, as there are in every industry, probably still. And at the time, being gay wasn't on.
mm,
Now, I'm not gay, but I have several friends who are gay, and I did then.
mm.
And, it's like they didn't dare come out because they'd have lost their jobs.
Yes.
And people who weren't married were not probably as trustworthy as those who were. And
Mm,
being a career woman was with that tone of voice,
yes.
well, she's a career woman, and the chin goes in and the voice gets
Yes.
all harsh and strained and that
Mm,
kind of thing. And you'd have that from other women as much as from men.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think and not I think, I feel that women sometimes can be other
Oh,
women's.
vicious.
Yeah.
Mm,
And it's something that I'm saddened by,
mm,
because I always say that I'm a great encourager. And that's why I share other people's stories on my podcast, because I love sharing other people's work and achievements and how they have come through their lives, because I know it's going to help, if not lots of my listeners, but one at least, and me in
even one,
particular.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And if I see another woman or male doing particularly well, or showing something that I feel is really going to help people, I will applaud them and I
mm,
will share it. And, I'll say to my clients sometimes, who would work really well with you is Ellen or Jimmy or whoever,
yeah, yeah,
contact them, because it's not
exactly.
about me having all the clients or me having I don't need it all, and I don't want it all, because I can't manage it all.
No, I quite agree with you, and I do the same thing. And I've
Yeah.
got a sort of a whole list,
Yeah.
address book full of people, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, you can put those two together. That would be really
Yes.
great.
Yes.
And I don't feel a need to compete with my
No.
colleagues.
No.
And they've got things for some people, and I've got things for other people,
Yes.
as you said.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think we need to be this. I think that's part of the being real, and being real is so important, that we, as examples in that sense, as coaches,
Mm.
we have to be that person as well,
Yes.
so that we're not just talking it. We're in the old, excuse me,
Okay.
shamanic phrase, we're walking our talk.
Yes. Yes.
We're being it.
Yes.
And I'm not competing with other people.
Yes.
I've got this. Do you fancy it?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
does this turn you on?
Mm.
And, if not, maybe you'd like to, why not go to Sharon or go to
Yes.
Kim or go to Faye
Yeah.
or something like that and see what they've got.
Yeah.
But I suppose because people are frightened, everything is money. People are frightened of their
Mm.
jobs. People haven't got enough to live on. And right now we can't half the time decide whether to put the heating on.
That's right. Yeah.
And I know people who are in that place,
Yes. Me too.
literally.
Mm.
And so there is no space or time. We feel like those hamsters on the treadwheel, when your
Mm.
wheel's going around on your
Mm.
computer. And somehow we've got to try and help people make that space time for themselves.
Yes.
Just stand back and say, actually, no, I don't need to buy into that. Or yes, I really want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to that awareness of yourself, the awareness of, as we talked about, the archetypes, the labels.
Yeah.
Am I that person anymore? So whoever's listening to this podcast, and you've listened to Ellen and the way she describes it beautifully, even just asking yourself, well, what do I like now? What do I believe in?
Yeah.
What makes my heart sing? Do I even know? And are there parts of me that I've hidden away under the stairs and I've not listened to? And have a little bit of fun with it. Don't be afraid of it. And kind of go in there and say to yourself, well, if I could walk into an enchanted forest and find a part of myself playing there, but hidden away, would I be able to walk that path? Would I be, even if it's overgrown, would
Yeah.
I be able to go in there and find that part of myself and be that best friend to that part? Just something very gentle, and without analyzing or trying to process it all, just have fun with it. I always say my inner child always comes out to play, Ellen. She
Absolutely.
loves the divilment, as we say in Ireland.
I love it too.
Yes. And I think it's really important that, again, as grown-ups, that we don't forget about the playfulness, about
Mm,
the imagination.
mm.
And the fact when you're talking, I love the magicalness, the mystery of it, and that you bring people in to their heart. And even for me, when you say my heart sings, I feel notes coming out,
Yes,
magical notes of energy coming out, and
yes,
almost exploring where they want to go, and them leading me in my mind, in my imagination to those places, wherever that is, and have fun discovering.
absolutely. And I'm totally with you there.
Oh,
And I just love taking people into the enchanted forest.
yeah. Beautiful. I love it. I think that's so amazing. And we're going to go to, you have many books written, Ellen.
Yes.
Wow. You've many books. You have published 12 books with Moon Books imprint of John Hunt Publishing, and three of which are best sellers. That
Yes.
is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. But I do think also that that speaks to the fact that people, they want their enchanted forest.
Yes, yes,
And the three that are, well, they're all selling very well. One's coming up very well behind as well. But they're all about finding that enchanted forest. And the
mm,
novels are particularly, obviously, because they're stories.
yes,
Um, but in Ellen of the Ways, which is a bit about myself and my own childhood and my own ways forward, you know, it's helping people to say, she did, so I can.
yes,
And I think
absolutely.
that's what works.
Yes. Well, I think you said it's walking the talk.
It is. Yep.
Because I would say, and I'm a very down to earth person, I'm very open and honest, like you, Ellen. And I would say, I'm not sitting here on a pedestal and saying, I know all of this and I can help fix all of your problems. Not at all. And I know you're the same. For
Mm,
me, I have come through many personal experiences that were very
yeah.
traumatic in my life. And I had to learn, and I talk about my own journey of healing and recovering and all of that very openly. So everything that I've learned is a tool or technique that I use to help myself. And
Yes.
then once I mastered it for me, and I'm still using it, I'm still learning, then I went and studied it even further so that I thought, oh, this might actually help somebody else.
Yes, that's right.
So
Indeed.
everything I've used or I use now with my clients and groups like you, I have used myself through
Mm,
my own journey. And
mm,
I still talk. And I love the fact when you even said about, oh, I have a body image issue, and I'll
mm.
be open about it. I think it's being truthful and
Yes.
saying to our listeners and saying to our clients, you know what, I don't get up every day and look like I'm fabulous and smiling and look in the mirror and go, aren't you the most amazing person in the world? I look I look at myself and I go, oh,
Oh,
look
well.
at the state of you this morning. But then I look into my eyes and I look into my heart
Yeah,
and I'll say, what's inside is going to shine out.
yeah,
And if what's inside my heart and my soul feels good and loved, that's going to shine out.
yeah.
That's the only way I can deal with my aging body.
Mhm. I love that. And what's inside your heart,
Mm,
that works for you in your life, in your
yeah,
relationships, and in your business.
yeah.
If your heart's shining,
Mm.
it'll make your business shine.
Oh, I love that.
And it
Yeah.
just does.
Oh, yeah. It's so
Even though it sounds
lovely.
like a load of rubbish to some people,
No,
try it. It
yeah.
works.
I think it's like you saying with your heart singing,
Yeah.
again, think about all of you that are listening, just this moment, what makes your heart sing or what
Yeah.
makes your heart shine out? It may be a person, it may be a hobby, it may be nature, it may be your job, it may be, someone that's not here any longer, but you connect to in your heart constantly. And every time you think of them, your heart shines out.
Yeah.
There's so many ways we can make our hearts sing and shine. And I think we just need to go back to that. If that was the first and only step you took from listening to Ellen today, was to say, just ask yourself that question. What makes my heart sing? Just discovering that could open so many doors.
I'm totally with you there.
Ellen, I just love it. And you're talking about, I want to ask you, this is what I wanted to ask you about. I have it underlined because I love the word. Now I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but a wins,
Right. Arwennis.
a
It's
winneth.
Welsh. So
Yes,
it's not the Gaelic side, it's the Welsh side. And they are quite different in the way they pronounce. And
yes,
I can't do Gaelic at all. One of my best friends, she's brilliant. And I'm sort of going, what?
yeah.
But this is Welsh, and you say it as are, when, if.
Or winneth.
Yeah. Double D in Welsh, the old British language, is TH.
Mm.
It gets worse.
We won't learn it today.
No, I'm still staggering around in it.
Yes. And it means spirit keeper.
Yes, it does.
Explain that to my listeners, spirit keeper.
Well, probably the best known word around the world at the moment is shaman.
Yes.
And that's a word from one of the Russian peoples, the Tungus people. And it means one who
Mm.
knows spirit. And Arwenith is the same thing. It's one who knows spirit and one who is able to keep spirit. And
Mm.
that is keep it alive in people's hearts.
Beautiful.
Keep it alive in the world.
Mm.
To be able to listen to that robin that Kim and I saw
Mm.
and be able to show it to the other bloke who couldn't see it, hear it.
Yes.
It's about being able to put the soul back in your business. It's about being able
Mm.
to make your heart shine.
Yeah.
And it's this continuous, what do you want to do? I want things to flow and grow.
Mm.
And your spirit does, your soul does, whatever you
Mm.
want to call it. And you keep that alive in people.
Mm.
You don't shove it away like Harry Potter under the bloody stairs.
No, no. I love that. And when you're speaking, Ellen, there is a beautiful storyteller quality to
Thank you.
you in your energy, a lovely softness that, and I've listened to your podcast, Pea Green Boat, and you were sharing a story, The Washer of the Ford.
Yes, yes.
Yes, and I listened to that and I felt like a child as I was
Oh,
listening to it because I could see all the imagery in my mind as you were speaking it. And what it brought me in awareness to is that as adults, we need to listen to
we
more
do. We
stories.
do. Yeah. It's one of the things that I want to do. One of the things I've already done to some extent,
Mm.
but I'm sort of planning for next year to try and have times, maybe webinars, maybe in person, maybe whatever, when I tell stories. And I tell stories to people anywhere.
Yeah.
Webinars, like we were talking about technology earlier, it
Mm.
does mean I can actually talk to people all over the world
Yes.
instead of, up the road in my local town or my local pub.
Yes.
And I want to bring stories to people.
Mm.
And I do tell them, I tell the old ones,
Yes.
but I also make up my own versions of the
Yeah.
old ones.
Lovely.
And I make up stories altogether. And
Beautiful.
so I'm trying to get to do that more. So thank you for telling me that I seem to be quite capable at it.
Oh, more than
I need
capable.
that.
You have a beautiful gentleness in your voice that brings you along. It's like flowing down a river
Mm,
on a very calm boat, and you're
pea
just
green,
flowing with
remember.
the words. Yes, it's lovely. It's really lovely. And that's what I experienced when I was listening to you, in that podcast, Washer of the Ford.
Yeah.
I felt like I was being carried along by the words and the story. And it was really, really, truly beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. And I
Thank
ask
you.
people to listen to more of Ellen's beautiful stories and to read her books, which are available on Amazon. I will put up all the links, Ellen, on the show notes
Thank you
as
very
well
much, Sharon.
of every way of everyone that can contact you. And
Yep.
I always say to people, just be curious and go and look at Ellen's, body of work, her website, look into her books. And again, what calls out to you? What is making you curious, or that wonder, that magic is shining out for you and you want to grab it like a child and open it up and see what it's going to teach you, because you want to go on a journey.
And if people want to find out more about me, they can always book a call through Calendly
Brilliant.
and have a
That's
10 or
lovely.
15-minute chat, and you get to know me a bit better and run
Yeah.
away if you want to, or
No.
carry on if you want to. But it's a way of getting to know me,
Yes.
almost in person for just a
Yes.
few minutes.
Well, Ellen, it has been my pleasure getting to know you on this podcast today.
And it's been my pleasure to be here. It's absolutely lovely, Sharon. And Sharon, I'm going to say this out loud in front of everybody. I would love you to come on my podcast.
I would love to. Thank you
Oh,
very
that's
much.
fantastic. We can do this again then.
We can. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Ellen. I would be honored to come on to it.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's lovely. I just love everything about your work. I love the way you speak about it. I love the way you talk about bringing the magic in and the old ways. And I think, again, for me, it's sometimes we need to go back to move
Yes.
forward.
Yes.
And, I used to say, only look back to see how far you've come. But now I'm feeling we need to go back to the basics, to the simple ways, and looking at how we can clear away the clutter from our minds and our lives and go back to just letting things grow a little bit wild without having to try and conform to society, and saying, what harm? What harm is it going to do if I get a little bit wild today and I don't prop up my cushions after somebody leaves? What harm? This is my home. This
Yeah.
is the place where I have comfort and warmth.
Yes.
And if it's somewhere for me to put my feet up on my own couch, that's okay. I'm not really worried about anyone else is thinking about, because this is where you have space for yourself.
Yes.
So again, with this podcast, I feel like what we've done today is created a space, Ellen, where you've given people permission to allow their heart to sing, to come out of the dark closet, and for them to go a little bit wild and quirky and say, what's that going to feel like for me?
Definitely. So, everybody, go wild.
Go wild, everyone. Ellen, thank you so, so much. Really enjoyed this conversation. So, everybody, please do check out Ellen, www.elensentier.com. Again, I'll put these all on the show notes. And you can find Ellen on Instagram. And her podcast is Pea Green Boat. You can find it on Spotify and other platforms. Her books are on Amazon. And she's also on Facebook, Elen Sentier, Wise Woman, or Wheeze Woman, is it? WYE''S Woman.
It's Y as in the river Wye.
Lovely, Wise Woman. And Ellen, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Sharon. It's been wonderful to be chatting with you.
It is so lovely. So thank you to all my listeners, and I look forward to connecting to you all again soon.